Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back to episode 6 of WAAC Weekly at the Red Path, the show where we look at Team Red Path news as well as World Eaters out in the world. This week we'll be doing something slightly different, just because we're in the wind down to the holiday period, so not that many events. We're going to look at the year in review and see how much we've grown as a faction since the start of the year. Okay, so we'll start off as normal. We'll just launch straight into the World Eaters Tournament roundup, and then move into Team Red Path news. There wasn't any, and then a couple of noteworthy performances out in the world, before moving on to a one-off year in review section, which is fairly meaty, before finally going on to the great game at the end. So to start with, the roundup this week, there's only been 17 games this weekend in the lead into Christmas, kind of to be expected with everything winding down. So one GT, we went 1 and 4. There were 4 RTTs, a 3-0, a 2 and 1, a 1-1-1, and a 1 and 2. So no 0 and 3s this week. Everyone who played World Eaters won a game with them, which is great. And we even got an event win. That 3-0 RTT was an event win. This means even though a smaller sample size, we got a 47% win rate, which is a decent improvement on the last couple of weeks. So in terms, as I mentioned, ITC Team Red Path news, no one played that I can tell this week. If you did and I have missed you, please get in touch and tell me, and I will know to look out for you in the future. So in terms of other World Eaters out in the world, I mentioned we had a 3-0 and a 2 and 1. So the 3-0 was Ben Sanson, now second place World Eater, pushing for first again by the looks of it, because he represented fully half of the RTT performances this weekend, playing back-to-back RTTs Saturday and Sunday this week. The first one on the Saturday, he won 3-0. So in the Charleston area monthly RTT, so with 8 players, he beat Khorne Demons and then 2 lots of GSC. And his list is something we have kind of come to expect of Ben nowadays. So Abaddon, Illusory, Apostle, which is fairly standard, an Exalted Champion, Violent Urgency for the +1 to charge and advance, some squads of Khorne Berserkers, 2 Blobs Terminators, which is kind of something that's been cropping up a lot in his list recently, or he's been enjoying the most success with 2 Blobs Terminators, which kind of makes sense. 2 up, 3 wounds with Armor Contempt, and then multiple targets for the Illusory Supplication is pretty nice. The Butchers are Rune Butchers. They're a bit more tooled up with a couple of Flamers and a couple of Chainfish, just to make sure they will mulch vehicles if they get to them as well. Because what the Chainfish must put them at strength 4, 8, 9, 10. Have I done that the right way around? Let me know if I've fucked it. I only really use cursed weapons, so it's not come up. I know the multiplication. It's multiplication then addition, right? So yeah, 2 Chaos Spawn just to be nuisance. Warp Talons, presumably as a target for how many CV? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So Warp Talons is a target for Frenzy potentially. Dreadclaw, I'm assuming that's the big squad of Berserkers, and maybe probably the Exalted Champion if he's got Violent Urgency. And then a Rhino, presumably for the other 2 squads of Berserkers, would be my guess. I believe Dreadclaw is only 10. If it's more than that, maybe it's 2 5s and the Exalted Champion in there. So yeah, fairly standard list. The two Blobs Terminators is cool. As I say, it gives a bit of redundancy, and it makes it you couldn't. Terminators are very hard to shift on objectives. I think that's a 7 and a 10. Presumably due to points. There's 7 Warp Talons there, 9 Berserkers. That's for transport capacity, and also it adds some redundancy for Abaddon protection, is my assumption. Which is pretty nice. And clearly it's worked well. He went 3-0. I don't have that much experience playing either Demons or GSC, to be honest. I've only played GSC once, and it was an unpleasant experience. I ended up playing the top GSC player in the UK or something, and I didn't know what was happening. I just sort of let it happen to me. Yeah, so congrats to Ben for 3-0 in the first ITT. I think he went 1-1-1 in the second one. So overall, a pretty good record for the weekend, and an absolute mad lad for doing 2 RTTs in 2 days. And then after that, we have Jeff Davis, who went 2-1 at the Arcus Warhammer 40k tournament in Georgia, USA, finishing 5th of 9. He beat Tau, and then it looks like he had a bye as well, and lost to Blood Angels, which, fair. Always good to beat Tau, but Blood Angels, yeah. So his list: Dark Apostle with Illusion Supplication, Flames of Spite, Gorget, Disco Lord, sure. I do like that. Cultists, 4 squads of Berserkers, including a squad of 7. Rune, Butcher Blob, just Bare Bones. A Mo, Bare Bones Mo. Not a fan of that, but people tell me I'm wrong. 2 squads, 5 Possessed, great. Warp Talon's great. 2 Mauler Fiends. Yeah, sure. I haven't had much luck with Mauler Fiends, but I know people have been making them work, and I quite like the models. I've got 3, one of which is primed. The other 2 are not built yet, but they're cool models. I just haven't. There's a lot of trim, and that will always put me off painting model, even if I think it's cool, unfortunately. Yeah, so congrats to Jeff Davis. That was a strong performance with a fairly. I mean, this list, the bones of this list are fairly familiar, I think. Warp Talons and Mauler Fiends are different, but other than that, I think a lot of these is kind of stuff that we're seeing beginning to emerge as commonalities, and I don't know if that's like not confirmation bias. Is it confirmation bias? If it's just stuff that, like, if it's stuff that we're propagating as a channel is making this more popular, and people are just smashing their head against the wall until they get it right, or getting lucky, which I firmly believe is how everyone games. But yeah, okay. So those were the two decent performances. As I say, a bit of a quiet week this week, but that is why we're doing a year in review as well. It has been a very long year for us. I was looking back, and there's some changes that feel like we've been playing with for a very long time that actually only came in this year. So this year spans sort of 3 seasons in my mind. So obviously we had the tail end of the 2021 ITC season, just because it runs until LVO at the end of January. And then at the end of January we had the Nachmund. That was when we moved into Games Workshop seasons, which was the Nachmund season. And then obviously in July we moved into Nephilim. So my first event of the year was just about in the 2021 ITC season. It was the same weekend as LVO, and so went into the previous season. I just thought I'd look back at the list that I took, because this is obviously the old book. It's pre-Armour of Contempt. Back when we had One Wound and everything. So I just thought I'd look just to see how much stuff's changed. And obviously there is a big one straight away, is Khorne is in the list and only 115 points. This was back when the Artillery Captain was still a thing. Brass Collar, probably the precursor to Black Rune, I think. And then obviously Illusory Supplication back then was not the powerhouse that it is today. It was the 6-inch bubbler 5-up invuln, I think, that worked on anything though. So then Chaos Cultists, 2 squads of Berserkers, Greater Possessed with Disciple of Khorne, love that, and Talisman of Burning Blood back when Talisman of Burning Blood was advanced in charge. Squad of Raptors, 2 squads of Raptors, big blob of Warp Talons. This was before they got their points drop. Yeah, because their points drop came with Nachmund to get them down to 20. And then the old faithful 3 Vindicators, 2 Rhinos with Combi Melters, and a Lord of Skulls. So this would have been the last ride of this list for me, I think. I think I went 2 and 3 in the end, and the experience at this event was what prompted me to change off this list, because I realised that there was too much stuff in the game that could just kill a Lord of Skulls in one round. Whereas up until this point, there hadn't really been that much. Or there had been the odd army, but it wasn't like most games. Yeah, that January event was really fun actually. Believe I don't know. I might play. No, I don't know. So as well as part of this year in review, I'm also going to be using some data from the StatCheck website. You can check out their dashboard. It's www.stat-check.com/the-meta. I'll link it in the YouTube video, in the YouTube description below. They're really good. You should definitely listen to their podcast as well. Some very good players talking about 40k in a really sensible way. And it's hilarious as well. So it's Innes Wilson, the WTC Scotland captain, Anthony Vanella, who's involved with the WTC USA team, and Nathan, can't remember his second name. Really good podcast, really good resource for the 40k community, and making efforts to move away from ITC rankings and towards more balanced metrics, and also thinking about more than just win rate, which is really good. So go check out their stuff. So I'm going to be pulling some of their data, or using some of their data. Important to note before we go too far is that their numbers will be slightly different to mine. I've been looking at RTTs and smaller GTs as well, whereas their stuff generally does only look at 25 plus player GT events. So the bigger events basically. I mean, most GT events are generally over 25 players, but there are a couple that are not. So that's worth keeping in mind as well. So obviously the end of the 21 ITC season happened at LVO late January this year, and then we were into Nachmund, which brought with it, I mean, the primary change going from scoring 5, 10, 15 to 4, 8, 12 happened with Nachmund, I believe. We also got no more mission secondaries, so we had mission secondaries as an option until this point, so they were gone. They were rolled in as like tertiaries or mission primaries, whatever you want to call them. And around this time, all factions got a secondary, I believe. That was when the Long War first came in for us, which was great, mixed. I mean, it gave us an option, right? And Long War, it wasn't terrible. I remember saying when it first came out that it was going to be rubbish because it looked too much like shock tactics for loyalists, and no one ever took shock tactics. But actually, I played it quite a lot this year, and it's done all right for me as like a fairly solid, if not great, secondary. So that was end of January, with some fairly significant changes there. And then one of the biggest changes for us, I think, one of the biggest, obviously with the Codex, one of the biggest changes for us was Armour of Contempt coming in, which was only in April this year, and it feels like we've been playing it forever, with the data slate. So I did also want to just look at a list that I took to Bristol in late April, which would have been the first event post Armour of Contempt, because obviously it will have changed a bit from this mess. So yeah, it was my jump pack lord with loads of attacks with Flames of Spite, rerolling wounds, because Flames of Spite didn't give you reroll wounds back then. Helm Furor for a strength 6, which was wounding most things on 3s. So you didn't mind, the theory-wise, you didn't mind re-rolling everything to fish for 6s to wound for more wounds. Benediction of Darkness for I think it was the -1 to hit at that point. 2 squads Cultists, 4 squads of Berserkers, Great Obsessed still with Talisman for the advance and charge. 1 Combi Melter Terminator squad, and then 1 Butcher squad with Bolters and Claws, and then 24 Warp Tunnels. So this was after the they got dropped to 20 points. They became one of our best units overnight, pretty much. Terminator's obviously in because we identified that Armour of Contempt on a 2-up save really, really good. So started just trying to shoehorn as much 2-up saves into our lists as possible. Couple of Rhinos and a Drill. So this was my not much shooting period. Bristol was, I think I went 2-1-2, which was my first ever competitive draw. But it was yeah, Armour of Contempt definitely breathed some life into us. I think like we there are a lot of armies that we previously had struggled into that suddenly became much less scary. I think the one for me where it really hit home was the first time I played Orcs with Armour of Contempt, because they have a lot of AP1 and like in cover, it, ignoring the first AP makes us suddenly very hard to shift for Orcs, like against Orc shooting, which was what was quite prevalent at the time, I think, because we were still coming off the tail end of the Speed War. The Speed War Nemesis. So in Nachmund, for me, I ended up playing 28 games total, and managed a 50% win rate with our 8th ed book, which is not too bad, I don't think. Well, I mean, and in the context of, so according to StatCheck, the World Eaters win rate at the larger events, so the 25 plus player GT sized events, for Nachmund was 37%. So going 50% is pretty good. So obviously, if you went over 37%, great. You are better than average as a World Eater player. If you didn't go, if you went under 37%, that's fine too. We were in a rough spot, and it makes sense given this. So the low win rate kind of makes sense because we were in this period. It was sort of like when most of the other factions had their 9th books or were getting them, and we still only had War Wound. So things like More Wounds just wrecked our entire army. Executioner was one of the saddest moments for me, where it was like, okay, D3 Mortals, and if it kills model, it does another D3 Mortals. Okay, that's the squad dead then. Maliceptor's a thing as well, with the whole do a flat 3 Mortals to the nearest unit if you cast on over a 7. Back when that was a thing, that was fun. Did play against that with Wolverine, that was fun. Yeah, so that was Nachmund. Nachmund ran from the end of January to the start of July. And then at the start of July, we got another big shake-up with Nephilim. More than one for us. But there were massive CP changes, so halving the starting CP, and then some big secondary changes as well. So all factions got multiple secondaries. So for Chaos Space Marines, that was the Long War, which was basically unchanged. And then for the Dark Gods, or God Rod, so doing actions in quarters to get a better scoring scheme than Nephilim data, but in more specific spots, and also +2 leadership. And then the last one, Rise to Glory. I almost forgot it. Dara would have killed me. Rise to Glory, which was your character's killing stuff in melee, get you points, and you can get CP back if you roll under the wounds on 2d6 of whatever you kill. And you get more points if you kill bigger stuff or the Warlords. So alongside Nephilim, we obviously got the new Chaos Space Marine book as well. I think it came out the same weekend or the weekend after. And then slightly before that, actually, we got Faith and Fury 3 Tokyo Drift, our White Dwarf supplement, which, as you can potentially tell, I have feelings about the state of that supplement. They did the bare minimum to update our rules to work with the CSM book, which for me feels really lazy, but it's fine. The CSM book is good enough that it hasn't mattered too much. It's just been a bit underwhelming. Or as Dara refers to it, we are living Codex meme lords at the moment. So far in Nephilim, because it looks like Nephilim is going to go until the end of the ITC 22 season, which will be the end of January with LVO again. So far this season, I've played 48 games with a 58% win rate. So the new book has bumped me 8% basically, which is good because I'm now sitting like towards 60, which is pretty nice. So then, and then sort of according to StatCheck, the world's win rate at larger events specifically again, so 25 plus player GT events, has been 43% for World Eaters in Nephilim. So a 6% bump as well, which is pretty good. I'm glad to have kept up / slightly exceeded the overall bump that we've got in with our new book and with the index. So, and then in terms of list, so this is the list I took to my RTT last week. I did go through it a little bit last episode. So Demon Prince with Disciple of Khorne. He's basically so I can take skulls, and Disciple of Khorne I feel facilitates that because he can reroll hits and wounds against stuff he's likely going to be going into. And then illusions application for the Termi blob, which is only 8 to save points, 2 squads of berserkers, a squad of cultists, dropped all the flamers to save points, still rune butchers, 2 squads of 5 chosen that actually did a fair amount of work. Master of Executions, I've gone on at length about my thoughts about the Master of Executions with the +1 strength, +1 attack, and reroll hits. 5 possess just for a little bit of speed, Rhinos for some speed, Termite for some speed and some deep striking obsec, and then Abaddon because he makes certain games significantly easier. Yeah, so with that done, I have finished this year with what I think is quite a respectable 54% win rate in tournament games. Overall for the year, again, according to StatCheck, the win rate at bigger events for World Eaters has ended up at 40%. As you can see from the image off to the side, Dara is currently at a 56.5% win rate in tournaments, and that means apparently that he is a better player than me. I will leave you to draw your own conclusions, given the only game that we've ever played. The result is also on screen. So basically, meme Dara. Ping him lots in Discord. He will love that. So obviously the second half of the year as well has been characterised by the announcement of our new Codex. I believe it was announced in August, and they've been drip feeding stuff, often forced by leaks, which I don't really like because I think it's screwed with their marketing plan and has led to far more discontent with the Codex than or anti-hype almost, rather than discontent. I think anti-hype, because they haven't been able to market it in the way they would have liked, and they could have. I think it would have been significantly better if there hadn't been leaks, and everyone would have been having a much better time of it. But obviously, the internet is going to internet, and there's been leaks, and certain corners of the internet have gone feral. So that's good. Anyway, we've got that to look forward to in the new year. Rumours are anywhere between... there's tinfoil hat theories about second week of January. There are supposed leaks from my dad who works at Nintendo, which says early Feb. There are doomsayers who say March. It could be anywhere in Q1 next year, basically. They've said winter. People are trying to argue that March is winter. I don't know when that's ever been the case. I think a good bet, and I have thought a good bet for a very long time now, is late January, early Feb. Just because of the new season stuff coming, probably late January. They haven't done a full release for Guard yet. I would expect that to happen early January. And then once that's out of the way, we'll get our stuff. What shape that takes as well, don't know. If there's going to be a battle box or a army box, like there was for Chaos Knights, like there was for Guard, like there was for Votan. Or if we're just going to go straight in with a Codex. I would expect an army box. I feel like I would expect an army box just because it's a new army, and they want to sell you all the shiny new models. And I feel like a combat patrol isn't necessarily going to get all of that. Because I feel like a combat patrol would probably be Juggerlord, Jackals, Berserkers, and then one squad of either 8-bound or Exalted 8-bound. So 3 of them. But that would feel... I don't know. I feel like there's more opportunity there. Anyway, rambling again. So I'll finish up with a great game. This is where I'm just taking a look at the number of Godline Legion players for each god, in anticipation of this big bump, hopefully, when the World Eaters Codex gets released. So this week, World Eaters are at 187 players with submitted scores around the world. Emperor's Children have gone up to 235, Thousand Suns are at 1145, and Death Guard are currently in the lead at 1314. World Eaters again with the smallest bump. Thousand Suns have been growing the fastest recently. It's probably understandable given the Thousand Suns Flamers stuff. There's probably a degree of people mislabeling, as in saying pure Thousand Suns when they're Thousand Suns and Demons. which I think a lot of people are counting as Chaos Soup, but not everyone, so that's probably skewing it a little bit. And there is the possibility that people have played Soup and then realised Thousand Suns are actually pretty good, and played Thousand Suns just pure afterwards. Either way, yeah, all going strong at the moment. Christmas is soon. Hope you all get some goodies. I'm currently saving money for the World Eaters release and working out how much I need to save for that. I'm trying to clear all of my painting backlog before I do that. Anyway, I'm going to do a separate video as a more personal year in review in terms of tournament performances over time. I'm a big stats nerd, so I've got all of my personal stats for the last year, as well as some hobby stuff. Go slightly outside of my normal lane. So number of models I painted, points, what armies I'm into at the moment, what I'm doing for the next couple of weeks, because I am on holiday off work for the next couple of weeks. That's why it's light outside when I'm recording this time. And then what my plans are for next year. I might go into a bit of goal setting as well, because I'm probably going to set some goals around both hobby and comp actually for next year. I did last year, and I've hit most of them, I think, which is good. Yeah, so I'll do a separate video on that. I don't know when that'll be out. This will be out on Wednesday, like it normally is, but I don't know when the next one will be. So, yeah, and the others might do it. Dara liked the idea, but, you know, he's lazy, so. And also bad at 40k. He just needs to. All he needs to do is retire on like not many games played, and then he'll have a decent win rate, and that's it. And it still won't be enough because he knows in his heart that I have beaten him, and that is the true measure of skill. Anyway, so yeah, I guess just enjoy the holidays. Switch off a bit if that means painting or not painting. Both of those are fine. I think we're going to have a big year as World Eaters fans next year, so there's gonna be a lot of change, and so like brace yourselves basically. Do what you need to do to get in the right headspace to deal with it. Yeah, spend time with family, friends, all of that good stuff. Enjoy the holidays. And stay healthy, stay safe, and kill me first.